Hey writers, welcome back to The Joy of Writing. In this episode, we're going to take the premise that you made in the last episode and expand it into a paragraph-long summary. While the premise had a character, a goal, and a conflict, your summary will have a beginning, a middle, and an end, or at least something that will resemble that. For our example today, we're going to use the premise posted in the comments of episode 1 by user Akio. A man unstuck in time tries to diagnose why he can never bring himself to watch his last moments. So in this premise, we have a main character, a man unstuck in time, a goal, he wants to see his last moments, and a conflict, this is something he's unable to do. Let's start by listing just some of the questions that came to my mind when I first read this premise. What exactly does unstuck in time mean? Can this man travel in time at will, or is it something out of his control? Can he only view the events taking place between his birth and death, or can he go beyond those? Why can't he see his final moments? Is it a personal problem, as in he can't bring himself to face his own death and discover how he dies? If he can travel beyond that point in time, does he just skip over it, as if his powers just won't allow him to see his death? Or maybe, no matter how far forward he goes in time, he can never find his death. And how did he get this power? Or is it a power at all? Maybe it's a curse. Either way, how did he come by it? Do other people know about his gift or curse? Are there others like him? What kinds of problems will come with being unstuck in time? Does it affect his relationships with other people? Maybe this man gets married at a young age and enjoys a happy marriage for 50 years before he discovers that his wife had been having an affair the entire time. And now as a young married man, he can't forgive her for something she hasn't done yet. Maybe he has a child who contracts an incurable disease and dies, and the sight of his living child makes him completely depressed to the point that he's unable to enjoy his moments with his child before he or she dies. How old was this man when he discovered that he was unstuck in time? Did something trigger it? Does something have to trigger it every time he goes to a different point in time? And so on and so on. As you can see, a premise can open your story to a whole lot of possibilities. Take some time and go over your premise, and write for about 10 minutes about the implications of your character's world, their goal, and the conflict. By the time you're done, you should have at least a page or two of questions that need answering. Then answer them. In the last video, I shared the premise for one of my own novels. The last man who can talk to animals must journey into a hostile, war-torn country to save his only friend before an evil prophet kills her. This led me to ask a lot of questions. Who is this man? Why can he talk to animals? Why is he the last one? Were there others? Where did they go? Who are the people he's with? How old are they? If they're younger than adults, where are their parents? Why aren't they being taken care of by adults? Why are they dirty and tired? Why are they in the middle of the woods? Who are they running from, or where are they going? What does the fact that the main character can talk to animals have anything to do with the story? And what does this imply about the world they live in? Who is his friend? Is she in this group? How did they get separated? How did they meet in the first place? What made them such good friends? Who is this evil prophet? A prophet implies a religion, so what's the religion like? Who practices it? Why is there a war going on? Why did his friend end up in this war-torn country? What is her connection to the evil prophet? What happens to the others in the group around the campfire? I could go on, but I'm sure this is already a bit overwhelming for some of you. My point is, when you're writing a story, especially sci-fi or fantasy, you need the world to be fleshed out. There needs to be enough detail to make the world seem real. Even if a certain detail never makes it into the final story, it's still important that you as the writer know those details. Ernest Hemingway, my favorite writer, coined the Iceberg Theory of writing. We all know what an iceberg looks like, with just 10% of its mass above water and the rest below the surface. This is how he wrote. He knew way more than the reader ever would about his story and characters and their worlds. His dialogue and description and the actions his characters take imply a much deeper story than the one he writes about. As an amazing example of the Iceberg Theory, read Hemingway's short story, Hills Like White Elephants. If you know this story, read it again, while keeping the implied subject of conversation in mind, and notice how Hemingway dances around it without ever outright mentioning it. If you've never read it and don't know what it's about, give it at least 2 read-throughs and really pay attention to this conversation that the couple is having. Imagine you're sitting in the same bar, eavesdropping on their conversation, trying to figure out what they're talking about. I won't use Akio's premise in this video, as I'd like all of you to work on your own summaries without me influencing your decisions about your own stories. So I'll use my own summary as an example this time. The beginning. Bren is the last man in the world who can talk to animals. His father and older brother also had this ability, but his brother was killed in a war and his father went missing at sea while Bren was 12. Bren leaves home to travel the world and meets Karen, Denzin, and Bryden. The middle. Bryden is an escaped slave, and his masters come after him. Bren tries to protect Bryden, only to fail and lose all his friends in the process. Bren does more traveling, doing his best to track down his friends. The end. His searching leads him to Lesh-Calais, a very religious country ruled by a prophet. He knows that at least Karen is in the capital city, Kamun, and he is forced to join a war to get close enough to find her. As in your premise, your paragraph summary doesn't need to include every detail or plot point. Keep it vague. Now is not the time for specifics, not yet. We're still discovering the story within that nugget of an idea that you've recognized. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's all you need in your paragraph. But as I said before, feel free to begin finding out the details and backstories of your story. Remember the iceberg. This paragraph summary is the small part above the water's surface. Your homework for this lesson is to read and study Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway, and to post your paragraph summary in the comments below. Also, begin to keep a journal of story details that may or may not end up being mentioned in the final version. Remember to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any lessons or quick tips. Join our Facebook group and follow me on Twitter, links to both of those in the description. Thank you so much to our sponsors on Patreon, and for the rest of you watching and supporting this channel. Next time, we'll begin crafting the most important element of your story, the characters. Until then, happy writing.